Last month we walked through my fish room and we talked about the plans that I have for it. After 5 years I decided we are taking down these 3 shallow reef tanks, the 40 gallon and the 2 20 gallons, and we're replacing them with one big shallow reef tank. Today it's time to put those plans into action by breaking down the first shallow reef tank. First up is this Aptasia infested 20 gallon tank. Hopefully this is a smooth process because we are working with live animals. I'm pretty nervous to say the least. Most of the corals in this tank are getting picked up by a local hobbyist in a few days. So for the time being I'm storing them in this black container pond. But man, I bought this container a few days ago and the smell is making me nauseous. So before we set it up, let's rinse it off outside to get rid of any chemical residue that may be present on it. It should be safe to use for this purpose because they are made for ponds, but the smell of plastic isn't really reassuring. I'll probably also add the mangroves to this black container as well. They have completed the acclimation process from brackish water to salt water. On Monday I have to bring the chalices, the big space invader and these 2 smaller pieces to my local fish store. I don't want to risk losing them in the process. I want to keep this big piece of rock with the 2 big toadstool corals for my new tank. I think they will look great in there. I also want to use this rock with the mushrooms on it. I like how the polyps on this rock have grown in over the years, so I'm keeping it as well. The other rocks have already been sold and they are getting picked up on Monday. The rock in the middle looks okay, but I don't want these corals in my new tank. As you can see, they are quite invasive and they've taken over the entire rock. And while doing so, they killed numerous of other species that were in their way. I'm bringing the Fungia colony, this big coral and a few other pieces from the frag tank to a friend's house on Monday as well. This big rock with the corals on it is going to the same person who's coming over to pick up these soft corals as well. I really don't want it in a new tank. We're putting my collection of mushrooms in the 6 gallon, I really like them. I've also decided to keep some simple pieces of rock for the new build as they have sponges and coralline algae on them. This will be a great opportunity to see the new tank. I'm keeping most of these coral frags for the new tank as well because I really like them. Since it's so hard to find different types of macroalgae here in the EU, I found a great way to collect some. I went to my local fish store and found some pretty interesting stuff on some imported corals from Indonesia. Alrighty, let's get to work by removing corals off of this rock. I'm not going to use this rock anytime soon because it's covered with Aptasia and bubble algae. It's going into the trash. Most of these corals were still on their frag plugs or small rocks, so it was very easy to get them off. And looking at this now, I should have worn gloves because soft corals can cause some pretty bad infections with their toxins. Especially the pelitoas are very dangerous, I feel so stupid. So, do not try this at home. Do not try it. Never. Man, look at how much this Caulerpa has grown. I'm definitely keeping it for the new tank. The funny thing about this is, some time ago I got a small piece from my local fish store, but I thought it had melted away. I didn't see any of it anymore. Then all of a sudden a small piece started growing from the back of the aquarium to the front, and now it's growing everywhere. It spreads through the sand and is also growing on some of the rock now. I'm keeping it in the black container for the time being. Now we need to take out some of the water from this tank and add it to the container because we don't want this algae to dry out. And maybe you've been wondering why I didn't take the fish out in the first place to prevent stress, but man, I tried catching them and they've just been hiding behind the rocks all the time, so now they have to wait. I also added a bag of carbon to the container to help neutralize most of the toxins that are released by these stressed out corals. Now I have to try and take out as much rock as possible, but most of them are stuck solid because we use so much epoxy when we set up this tank. Only very few small pieces came loose, but I guess it helps. We'll have to take out this big piece in one go, so I asked my mother to hold a bucket next to the tank so I can put the rock in there. There are some small fragments of coral left on the rock, but unfortunately we can't save it all. If we try taking it off, we'd completely rip the tissue of the coral and it would lead to problems in the black container, so we're better off just throwing it in the trash. Underneath the rock I found some empty shells from snails that died a long time ago. I'm putting these aside so we can add them to the new tank. They serve as a great hiding spot for small fish, shrimp and even hermit crabs. I'm putting these corals in the black container because I'm keeping them. Now is the perfect opportunity to catch these clownfish because they have nowhere to hide, but I won't add them to the black container because I want it to settle for a few days to make sure there are no problems. For now I'll put these clownfish in the frag tank. And now things are getting dirty because we have to remove this nasty sand. As you know, I used to gravel vac my other aquariums whenever I did a water change. This got rid of most debris and kept the sand really clean. But in this soft coral tank there was no way of doing it because the caulerpa was growing everywhere. As you can see, the sand was pretty dirty. My original plan was to keep the corals that are getting picked up in this tank. But as I was taking out the sand, I figured this was not a good idea, so I put them in the container as well. So now that all the corals and fish are out, we can unplug the heater and flow. I waited a few minutes for the heater to completely cool down, and then I started draining this nasty water. In my opinion, this was a pretty smooth process, but still took a little bit longer than I expected. I put the power head into the container and added a LED bar on top of it. The macroalgae really needs this, so this is very important. I also rearranged some coral and algae to improve flow throughout the container. Alrighty, one tank down and 2 more to go. And these are going to be the most difficult ones to empty out because they are the most stocked. But what's the plan with this empty tank? Well, the tank itself is getting sold because it's still a nice tank. Most of the equipment, however, is getting installed on the new tank. Unfortunately, the cabinet is pretty damaged and I don't see a point in selling it, so I'm just throwing it away. It has been a few hours since we added these corals and algae to the container and they've been able to acclimate a little bit. I'm going to do a small water change on it after the corals are picked up tomorrow, and I'll raise the water level as well in preparation for the other corals and rocks out of the 40 gallon. I just need to clean the power head because some small parts of the macroalgae got stuck in it, but other than that, this seems to work. I'll be keeping a close eye on this temporary setup because this can be really tricky. I won't add the clownfish unless I'm sure that the water is fine. If I don't trust it enough, I'll have to bring the clownfish elsewhere. Tomorrow I'll be taking down the frag tank and the 40 gallon, but I'm most nervous about the 40 gallon because that's the biggest one of them all and has the most animals in it. We'll see how it goes, and even though I wasn't really getting excited about these tanks anymore, it still feels really weird breaking them down. It's something I've worked on for 5 years and they've just been with me for so long. But the next project is going to be super interesting, so make sure you follow along by subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.